To many, a bank robbery looks something like this.
Nobody move!
But what if I told you that a group called the world's most successful bank robbers by US officials did it without ever stepping foot inside a bank?
As laid out in today's indictment, North Korea's operatives, using keyboards rather than guns, stealing digital wallets of cryptocurrency instead of sacks of cash, have become the world's leading bank robbers.
This is the story of how North Korean hackers allegedly stole more than $1.3 billion in foreign banks and cryptocurrency exchanges and got away with it. This is the big steal. Before we start, a few caveats. This is by far the hardest episode of The Big Steal to research yet. And that's because while criminal organizations are inherently secretive, we're talking here about an operation that is inside North Korea, a country so secretive that the media often can't tell if leader Kim Jong-un is even alive. But even in a place this impenetrable, some facts do get out. And to understand why a group of ostensibly state-sponsored hackers came to be and why they're so focused on theft, we first need to know a bit of history about the Hermit Kingdom. After World War II, Japan lost control of the Korean peninsula, and it was divided between the two superpowers at the time. The North fell under the influence of the Soviet Union, while the South was backed by the United States. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or DPRK, as North Korea is officially called, was founded on September 9, 1948, with Kim Il-sung, a one-time guerrilla army fighter, as its leader. The communist country invaded the South in 1950, kicking off 3 years of conflict that left an estimated 2.5 million civilian casualties, including as much as 20% of North Korea's population. On July 27, 1953, the fighting stopped, but the war did not. And today, 67 years later, the Korean War isn't actually over. Which is why, even now, with Kim Il-sung's grandson Kim Jong-un in charge, North Korea is, technically, still at war. Tensions remain high on both sides, with US-backed forces annually holding military exercises like these near the DMZ, or the demilitarized zone at the border of the two territories. It's made North Korea one of the most militarized societies on Earth. An estimated 1.2 million people are in the military, a wing of the Workers' Party of Korea, with Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un acting as its commander. And at the center of all of this is North Korea's biggest and costliest endeavor, its nuclear program. North Korea's ongoing efforts to become a nuclear state, which it believes will prevent it from falling amid a US-backed invasion, has made an already isolated nation a global pariah. Of course, it's only fair to point out that the US does have the biggest nuclear arsenal in the world and is also the only country to ever use nukes against another nation. North Korea has been under heavy UN sanctions since 2006 when it first began nuclear tests. These sanctions first targeted weapon sales to and from the country, but have since expanded to include everything from coal, oil, and rare earths to textiles, food, and luxury goods. These sanctions have decimated North Korea's economy, to the point that one visiting Japanese expert referred to it as the poorest advanced state in the world. Remember, there was a time that the North was the richer of the two Koreas, but 2 decades of sanctions, famine, natural disasters, and now the pandemic has left it isolated and struggling. But despite scenes like this, North Korea still spent an estimated $620 million in 2019 on its nuclear program. So where does all this money come from? China remains the nation's biggest trading partner. It's responsible for as much as 3/4 of all exports, with sales of wigs, timepieces, and illegal apparel helping keep the economy afloat. But billions of dollars of hard foreign currency are also brought in through several government bodies with dubious aims. Room 39, a secretive division allegedly responsible for keeping North Korean elites flush with cash, is the long-suspected source of supernotes, near-perfect counterfeits of US currency. It is also, in the 90s, suspected to be the source of some of the purest methamphetamine in the world. A different government body, Unit 108 of the Reconnaissance General Bureau, is now allegedly behind an even more lucrative way to circumvent sanctions: hacking. The state body has been named the source of major hacks by officials from the United States, South Korea, and the United Nations. They also accused the group of being behind an operation that stole $81 million from the Central Bank of Bangladesh. At the time, investigators suspected a hacker group known as Lazarus of being behind the attacks. An investigation by cybersecurity firm Kaspersky Lab traced an IP address used in the attack from a European server back to North Korea, marking for the first time ever a direct link between the hack of a bank and the secretive state. And the Bangladesh attack was just the tip of the iceberg. North Korean hackers had quickly capitalized on cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, sneaking malware into computers to mine for cryptocurrency as far back as 2017. That same year, South Korean intelligence claimed that hackers from the north were stealing as much as $88,000 in crypto from South Korea every single month. The timing of these hacks coincided with a ban on purchasing North Korean coal exports by China, dealing a serious blow to the regime. With a surplus of coal no one wanted, cybersecurity experts believe that North Korea began to use it to mine for cryptocurrency domestically as well. Crypto mining requires a significant amount of electricity, something North Korea famously had in little supply. But through a combination of Bitcoin mining, malware theft, and demanding payments from victims of ransomware, North Korean hackers were allegedly able to amass a fortune in cryptocurrency. A UN report found that between January 2017 and September 2018, North Korean hackers had broken into cryptocurrency exchanges in Japan and elsewhere and made off with an estimated $571 million. By 2018, North Korean hackers had also reportedly stolen a combined $23.5 million in old-fashioned currency directly from the servers of banks, hitting banks in India and Chile before routing the funds through companies registered in Hong Kong. By the end of 2019, these figures grew to an estimated $2 billion, a staggering amount that eclipsed estimates of how much money the country lost to increased sanctions over the same period. Lazarus, now one of the most successful Bitcoin theft rings on earth, continued to target crypto exchanges, stealing $275 million from Singapore-based KuCoin in 2020. Altogether, these digital heists, which totaled billions, represented a significant cash flow for a nation that only had a gross domestic product of $18 billion in 2020. And according to recent UN reports, there's pretty strong evidence that this cash was used to advance North Korea's nuclear program. But in 2021, authorities made some headway in fighting these hacks, unmasking 3 members of the elusive Lazarus group in a U.S. federal indictment that accused them of involvement in more than $1.3 billion in crypto and bank hacks. 2 of the men seen here are reportedly members of the North Korean military and represent at least part of the Lazarus group. A third, Park Jin-hyo, who was already known to authorities, had been previously indicted in the Sony Pictures hack. He is also allegedly behind the creation of the ransomware virus WannaCry. US Fed seized 280 crypto wallets allegedly used by North Korean groups and also charged a Canadian citizen with helping the men launder the funds. These wallets reportedly contained almost $2 billion in stolen crypto, which US authorities seized to be returned to banks. But the hackers themselves remain free men living in North Korea, where they will, in all likelihood, continue their campaign of digital bank robbery. Meanwhile, countries are reporting a flood of new ransomware attacks, all demanding Bitcoin to unlock people's data. It's a possible sign that the Lazarus group has set its sights, at least temporarily, on smaller targets. It's also important to note that North Korea has denied many of these allegations, which, to be fair, were made by their sworn enemies.
The indictment refines the attribution of this crime spree to the DPRK military intelligence services. Simply put, the regime has become a criminal syndicate with a flag, which harnesses its state resources to steal hundreds of millions of dollars.
But it's not hard to imagine the regime investing in highly skilled hackers and digital warfare, especially when its very survival is at stake.